When a game is full of so much chaos, a big challenge that the developer has to overcome is how they give the player information that the player needs to know. And there are obviously a ton of ways to do this. As you can imagine, the most common way this is done is with visuals. Elements on the UI telling you the status of your teammates or the status of the objective. Some games, especially a lot of Valve games, will use these simple, high contrasting character models and textures to make your teammates and your enemies stand out very strongly from the background at all times. In League of Legends, the devs try and get really good unique silhouettes for every champion. No two characters will walk the same way, run the same way, swing an axe the same way, etc. Every champion has a unique silhouette with unique animations surrounding them, so that even in the chaos of a team fight at Baron, you can still tell exactly what's happening and who's doing what at all times. This challenge, this issue of clarity, is an issue that has plagued many game developers over the years, because it's an issue that for a lot of genres of games can make or break the game. Make a really fun game that happens to have very poor readability, and suddenly your game isn't so fun anymore. So game developers are constantly trying to find good ways to make their games as clear and concise as possible in terms of gameplay. Because there can be a ton of fun in the unknown, in the mystery of what a game has to offer you. But it's not so fun when that mystery is what the fuck is happening on my screen. What is this? What am I looking at? Having clarity in a game gets exponentially more important the more complex and chaotic the game becomes. A big way to combat confusion in a chaotic game is to reduce visual noise. If you're in a chaotic situation in a game, having a ton of particle effects and flashing lights all over your screen makes it way harder to tell what's going on. That would be visual noise. A ton of flashing lights and particle effects all over your screen that aren't all that important to the gameplay or to telling you what's going on. They're just there for show. Whereas the exact same amount of chaos might not be too difficult to read when you take out all of those flashy visual effects. So instead of giving everything super flashy and over-the-top visual effects, you save those sorts of effects for the very powerful and game-altering abilities that the player has. But minor abilities should stay minimalistic on the VFX for the sake of clarity. A character's ult having crazy VFX is fine. A pipe bomb having crazy VFX is fine, but it'd become far too overwhelming, far too quick for this to be the way everything looked all the time. But sometimes, a game can be so chaotic that good visual design doesn't really do the trick anymore. The game will become such a visual mess that there's no HUD change, VFX reduction, or unique silhouette that could possibly make the game easier to pass. So what do you do then? Well, you change tactic. Instead of changing the visuals, you change the audio. Audio cues are the most powerful tool in a developer's arsenal to give the player vital information as quickly as possible with no confusion whatsoever. People's reaction times to audio stimuli have been proven to be faster on average than to visual stimuli, meaning that if you have a fast-paced game that's quite the clusterfuck, your player is going to have a much better time reacting to audio cues than visual cues. Not to mention that 99% of games don't have everything on screen all at once. If something's behind you in a first-person shooter, it doesn't matter how fast your reaction times is if you didn't see it in the first place. But if you heard it and just didn't react fast enough, then it sounds like a skill issue. But even if your game isn't a chaotic hellscape, having good audio cues can be a great way to let the player know that something important just happened so that they can turn their focus to it. And when you start paying attention, audio cues are everywhere. When you play Call of Duty Zombies, every time the round changes, it goes like... In Overwatch, every single character has a unique voice line that plays globally anytime they use their ultimate ability. So when Pharah ults, she's all like... Justice rains from above! In Risk of Rain 2, anytime the two strongest elite types spawn, the Malachite and Celestine elites, there's a unique audio sound that plays for each. So you're not going to accidentally oopsie-daisy into a Malachite spike without knowing full well that there was a Malachite elite on the map somewhere. Now, audio cues can be split up into two categories: diegetic audio and non-diegetic audio. Ooh, technical words, I'm so smart. Scary, I know, but it's not that complicated, trust me. Diegetic audio is audio that actually exists inside the game world. That's audio that you, the player, can hear, but the fictional characters in the game can also hear. The sound emanates from the fictional story world, so any gunshot sounds, any enemy noises, and any character screaming their catchphrase will all be considered diegetic audio, since the characters can hear it, and so can the player. So that means that non-diegetic audio is audio that only you, the player, can hear. It's audio that only exists on the player's end, and the characters in the universe aren't actually hearing it along with you. So any music or soundtrack would be considered non-diegetic, unless of course it's like emanating from a radio or something. Any cool little sound effects of your character leveling up or gaining points would also be non-diegetic. And the games with the best sound design use both diegetic and non-diegetic audio as audio cues to give the player the info they need. And one of the most perfect examples of this is Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead has the best sound design in the business. The game becomes extremely chaotic, with hordes of zombies literally covering your entire screen at many points in the game. But miraculously, after playing for only a short while, the player will not be at all confused with what's happening, basically ever. And as you guessed, it's because of audio cues. Basically everything the player could possibly want to know at any given time has multiple audio cues, both diegetic and non-diegetic. The special infected all have their unique vocalizations that indicate that there is something lurking around the corner. But they also have music cues as well, a simple melody that alerts you to their presence. Anything that's remotely important for the player to know will have its own audio cue. I go into more detail about Left 4 Dead's sound design, as well as other things about the game, in another video, link in the sidebar. The example that I'm having the most fun with at the moment is a game called... It's a very simplistic arena shooter that takes simple mechanics, a simple art style, simple arena, and simple enemy design to make a game that has more depth than some AAA games I've played. And this game very rapidly becomes complete and utter chaos. That's sort of the fun of the game. But this game manages to stop the player from getting overwhelmed by giving them a ton of audio cues to know exactly what's coming your way. On the surface, this game might look like a game all about twitchy aim and fast reaction speeds, but under the surface, it's actually a strategy game in disguise. Target priority is the name of the game, and the audio cues help tremendously with that. For example, there's these skulls. They both chase you directly, but the horned ones are faster and have more HP, and they have a very distinct audio cue. The louder the sound gets, the closer it is to you. Prioritizing the spawners is extremely important, but listening out for these audio cues will tell you just how much longer you can continue to ignore the enormous cloud of skulls behind you before it's too late. There's also these huge spider enemies. Their audio cue is extremely loud and distinct, because they're a very large threat. They steal your gems and use them to spawn in enemies, which will obviously cause you a lot of problems. So they have to be targeted above all else. So their audio cue is extremely distinct, and it doesn't change based on distance. Less important audio cues will get ducked out from more important ones as different enemy types start to spawn in. As chaotic as it might look, a player in this situation can actually have a very good understanding of exactly what's going on and exactly what enemy that they need to target next. Good sound design is such an important part of so many games for so many reasons, but it's also extremely underappreciated. And audio cues that give you key information are a big part of what makes so many games so special. You can make one of the most exciting, high-octane, chaotic games ever made, but if nobody can tell what's going on, it's not that much fun to play. Pretty much every game in existence uses audio cues like this, whether it's for clarity's sake or just to give you a dopamine rush whenever your points go like... So do tell me cool examples of it down in the comments, because I'd love to hear it. Make sure that the next time you play your favourite game, you pay attention to the sound, because some underappreciated sound designer slaved away over that audio, and that audio is often what makes the game work in the first place. Thanks for watching.